pop this on. There we go. So welcome, Hugh Ingalls. Hugh is my eldest of three boys. And back in 2010, it was Hugh who at our dining room table asked me if I would coach the mental toughness tips that I teach my violin students and them to his baseball team. And my middle son was playing on that team as well. So I actually laughed at that. I thought, you must be joking. Like, you didn't even want me near the dugout when you were in second grade. So
Yeah.
what is this about? And I had coached middle school track for their teams. And so they understood me as a coach. But he was serious, weren't you, Hugh? He really wanted this.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to toss it off to you because there's so much that has happened since then. And you were really the first person, along with me, who delved into the method I created in 2010 and how it changed us. And oh, there's one thing to key right off of something Alex just said about sleep. Both Hugh and I, it was about 6 to 8 weeks in of using the method I created on ourselves, we started getting up earlier and earlier. And I remember one Saturday morning, it was like about 5 a.m. I'm downstairs already. I'm already doing something. And he comes down the stairs and he goes, "Mother, I wake up calm and exhilarated every morning. What is that?" Now, what teenage boy at 18 is coming down on a Saturday morning then? It was just crazy. And so what it really was about was I said, I think we're getting a real night's sleep for the first time, like a real night's sleep. So it was certainly one of the first things that we noticed when we weren't triggering the stress response so much and really making a difference with this. So I'm going to toss it over to you, Hugh, and feel free to talk about yourself and then share some great tips with us of things you've learned.
Yeah. So I'll just continue the story. So when, Elle introduced, our family to some of these tools, there was something that just clicked in my mind that said, hey, there's something here that I can apply to my life right away. And there was specifically two moments where there was two additional breakthroughs other than the story that Elle just shared. The first being was on the baseball diamond, where in asking an empowering question as a baseball pitcher, I asked myself, how can I throw a strike every time? And in just trusting my mind to guide my body towards, kind of that perfect, almost like perfect pitching form that will allow, basically a strike every single time. It is kind of funny. It was a blessing and a curse because I had to actually unlearn how to throw a strike because, of course, if you're a batter and that this pitch is going to come through. So I became a great batting cage pitcher because I could just toss strikes all day. So but that was a really powerful moment where the tools that are taught through Pressure Free, starting with the empowering question is what really clicked for me, and then it worked into smile and posture, the Ferris wheel, which can jumpstart that posture and that smile. That really and so the athletic performance piece started to take off. And then the next component is, what would that look like in the classroom? Being someone who always strived for A's but never quite got there, it was a big struggle. And so the breakthrough moment in the classroom was there was a tough professor who had been at the school 30 plus years, and we had one of his infamous essay tests at this was the last essay I was going to take as a senior in high school, and I got C's on every single essay up until that moment. And he'd hand out this big thicket of paper that you just start writing on, and of course everyone just started grabbing their pencils and pens and just started going, because it's a time. You have 45 minutes to complete this. And I asked myself, the empowering question of how can I get an A on this? And I just let myself sit for the first 2 minutes of the 45. Everyone is just going. I could feel the pressure in the room building by the second as people are, the rest of the students and friends were just going, as fast as possible and just trying to get, as much down on paper as possible. So I sat there for a moment. And then I felt my hand just go to my laptop, because at the time we were one of the first schools in the country in 2010 to have laptops. Well, there wasn't any rules against using a laptop. So what I did is just calmly opened my computer and I just started typing, and I typed out my whole essay and was able to spell check it and use it as a tool. And then, so I just calmly wrote out the entire essay, and I could do it so much quicker on my laptop than try to hand form. And then I, moved my laptop aside and then, translated that to the paper and ended up getting an A on it. And that was the moment where I felt that I let my mind do the work and do what it's supposed to do. So it was giving it the opportunity to perform, as opposed to where my mind was at. Like a lot of our minds, when we're in that fight or flight stress response in which it's shut down, we're not even giving it the opportunity to work for us, because it's in a state that is going to just be that protective piece of ourselves, whether you fight, flight, freeze, or any of the other F's you want to throw out there. So those were two very impactful moments early on. And then that kind of translated into set the stage for just a really amazing experience in higher ed, doing an undergrad at a small private Catholic college that just allowed me to, it was just the perfect environment for me to kind of put these tools to the real test, not only in the classroom, but socially. And it really just allowed me for, up until that moment, even talking to the opposite sex was very triggering for me. And so it allowed me to just, see people for who they were, and not this scary, big scary thing. And so, and that kind of led to the first entrepreneurial venture in starting a college hockey program. And that was when Pressure Free was kind of really put to the ultimate test as an 18-year-old kid who's going up in front of board of trustees, so public speaking in front of, very distinguished individuals, at a board of trustees of a college, and convincing them to, to basically fund a whole varsity program. So essentially, in some words, writing, myself and the others that were part of it, including my father and some of my friends, write us a $60,000 check for the year to fund the program. And so, and that's just kind of builds to this idea of once you start to live in a way that, you get rid of some of that toxic sludge, that stress sludge that just builds up over time. It just allows for you that, allows for that that clarity of things. So I was very clear on what I wanted to have happen, very clear on who I wanted on the bus, very clear on understanding that I needed to almost get 50% of people who didn't believe in this idea that we could have a hockey program at the school, and 50% of people who did believe. And that was just myself playing by my own rules, because I allowed myself to come up with the solutions that I needed. Of course, I had mentors, I had beautiful people that were guiding, but I think with anything in life is that it's all going to come down to ourselves and, what the rules that we create in order to, gain traction and move towards a goal. And Pressure Free is just that catalyst, that force that allows you to figure out it for yourself. What does it look like? So starting a hockey program, I could follow, maybe there's a book I could read, that follows that step by step, but I may fail because that's playing by rules of someone else and a different set of mind, a different mind, a different body, different relationships, different scenario. So I think Pressure Free, I think it just allows you to paint your own picture. And so in starting that program, that gave actually, set the stage also for my brother Ned and I to work together to start a video production company, and in which Elle was involved as our CFO, and our dad works with us, and our youngest brother just became a partner, and so it's a family affair. And we also have, we have extended family on our team that that it just makes for a beautiful everyday life. And so so that was just kind of a couple of things, just talking about Pressure Free when I was thinking about when Elle asked me to speak today. Starting the hike program, starting video production company, and then I see Emma's on right now, and I think she was on earlier today, and I'm going to touch back on that clarity piece. So Elle may have mentioned this story at some point throughout today, but allowing So I ran an exercise at a retreat that Elle hosted, and Emma and her mom were there in the certification program, and it was running through this idea of like, picture yourself 10 years from now, like who is that person? And this is something that has been a guiding force for me the last probably year, in thinking as a 30-year-old. I'm 31 now, but 30-year-old. So my 40-year-old self, who is that person? Who is that guy? What is he doing? What is he wearing? What's in his bank account? Like, just painting that very clear picture of that person. And then over time, just kind of sitting down with that person. So it could be through meditation, it could be through, actively just when you're driving the car, but just go visit with that, with that person. So I often do that. So my 40-year-old self last summer was a guy who was in a Swiss ski lodge. He's wearing this crazy, funky lime green outfit, and he's just loving life, and the family's on the ski slopes, and he's just sitting there, in the lodge, and he's just smiling. He's just having a great time. So I often go sit with that guy and hang out. Well, going back to the retreat and walking through this with the group, Emma just happened to be sitting directly across from me, and she shared that she wanted to be in Hawaii, with her partner. She's financially free, and she's on the beach, she's loving life, her coaching business is taking off, and so we share these things. And then at the end of the retreat, we decide, or Ella has our task of having an accountability partner. And I think, I approached Emma because I just wanted her number. And so yeah, and then kind of the long story short is, within 2 weeks, I booked a trip to Switzerland to join her while she was ski coaching. And then we went to Hawaii last December for my youngest brother had booked a marathon there. So we decided to go to Hawaii. So we got to glimpse, what our future selves 10 years from now. We did both of those trips in 6 months. So it's, I think, going back to pressure free, it's that clarity. And oftentimes, I've shared this with you, is another empowering question is, how can you accomplish your 10-year goal in 6 months? And we did that. So 10-year plan, we did it in 6 months, and now we're living happily together and all that good stuff. But anyhow, so that just goes, I'm just sharing some stories about what pressure free has meant to me over these years, and being kind of the first student to kind of have it just click, and for it to be that kind of, I call it, almost active stress management. I kind of view the passive stress management, going to work out, going to meditate, all these things, which is all things that I do every single day. They have a role, they have a purpose, to be still, but and how the world just continues to speed up from just the ability to move an idea from one stage to the next so quickly, and how quickly we can get an amazing group of people together in a room like we are right now. So the speed of the ability to do those things continues to accelerate. And so I think what pressure free allows you to use is active stress management that can allow you to manage that and thrive within that speed. Because I can't just say, sorry guys, I'm stressed, I have to go, I'm going to go work out now, I'm going to sign off the Zoom right in the middle of a talk. Like, we can't do that. So how do we actively manage our stress? And pressure free is that answer. And so it's just a beautiful tool, or set of tools, just that force, that at the end of the day, you wake up energized. Going back to your story about how that first night of sleep, you wake up energized and you fall asleep satisfied. I think that's where the rubber really meets the road, is how are you waking up and how are you going to sleep. And I can tell what levers I need to pull if one of those things are out of whack. Like, I'll give you an example. This morning, and Emma could probably attest to it, I slept in for an extra hour and a half, but my body needed that, and I needed to pull that lever for a second. I didn't push the envelope, but I recognized, hey, let me backtrack to the last few days. Where am I a little bit out of whack here, that I needed that extra hour and a half of sleep? But I was pressure free, and I was okay with doing that and not getting stressed that, hey, I may have missed a morning workout. That's okay. I can do it at lunch hour. and giving myself grace and giving others grace that, it's okay. So
Touches a little bit on what Alex said about, the perfectionism. It can, just create such an overload. And so when you can give yourself the grace, I love that word very much. Thanks for bringing that forward. I want to go back in time for a moment to that baseball team, because we have people that are going to be watching this, that have watched this today, and they'll be getting the recording, that are coaches of all kinds, athletic coaches, ADs, a lot of different people. And your team, that baseball team, was the first team that I coached. I coached each boy privately, just took them right on the grass, coached them for 30 minutes. And there was a pivotal moment when I had a young man whose father was an MLB umpire. And when I sat down on the grass with him, of all the kids, he was the only one that I thought might just kind of roll his eyes at me and think like what I was talking about was stupid and, just pushback, resistance. And so I did my thing. I coached him, and then I stood up. I said, I'm really happy to share this with him. And I put my hand out to shake his hand. And he said, oh no, Mrs. Ingalls, you get a hug for this, because this is going to change my life. And that was a moment that, it tears me up every time I think about it. Every time I look into his eyes and he said that to me, that was very profound. And so then I worked with the whole hockey team of my middle son. And the feedback that came back from those boys, even years later, I will get texts from those boys, or they'll ask me for a suggestion. Like it was so cool. And the impact was far greater than anything I ever dreamed. Now working with executives to 80-year-olds, like all kinds of people, young 10-year-olds. But Hugh, when things happened with that baseball team, and I'd love for you to share as other coaches hear this, like what happened with that baseball team?
yeah, we set the school record for wins that year. And you're talking about our St. Phil team, 2010. Yeah. Yep. That was a special year because, well, not only, that Ned and I, so the middle brother and I, run a team together for the first time. Just with, travel hockey, I think he was 2 years younger. So that was special that we were both on that team together. And, although we did not, necessarily accomplish our big shining North Star of beating, winning a state championship. There were some really impactful moments. I'll go to the reason I brought up the pitching is that I started our first district game. It's winner you go home. And we were playing a team, and I had pitched against them before. And so they kind of have figured me out, and they kind of tacked on, I think they went up like 9-0, or maybe even more. It was, and so, but it was the first time in really any sporting, or like any sort of sporting experience, from hockey to baseball to football to basketball, in which at no point was there any panic. Like we were down 9-0 in the fourth. You only play 7 innings. So we had 3 innings to come back. And I think we put up 12 in the last 3 innings. We ended up winning 12-10, I think. I can't remember the exact score. But regardless, at no point did we panic. And even as I was getting shelled in the first game I ever gave up more than maybe a run, it was, even myself, I just kind of, it's like, okay, I got to adjust. But yeah, we just plucked away. That was an incredible, that was the moment where everything kind of, within such a short period of time clicked as a collective unit, that there was that group think around, hey, whatever we just learned through that little 30-minute session, like, our minds line here, we're going to be fine. Like, we're going to be okay. Let's just go back to what we do well. And and our coaches too. I think everything in life starts at the top, and the fact that our coaches were in a mindset of calm and not panic, because for some weird reason they didn't pull me. I kept getting shouted, and they just let me in. I don't know, it was just kind of a feeling like it's okay, we're going to be fine. And normally, you maybe got 4 or 5 runs, you get pulled after 3 innings, but yeah, that was
Well,
was cool.
the head coach became my
Fun.
private coach. Like I brought the idea to him and he hired me to be his private coach. So he's learning one-on-one with me. And then the whole team is learning. Like it was just great synergy. When it comes from the top, it's great synergy. So he was bought in, and that affected the assistant coaches. Like you guys were all, the transformation from the beginning of the season to when we initiated, huge difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference. It's
There
really, it
have
was so
been,
palpable.
for the team, with how well we were doing that year, and we hadn't ever been in that position the entire season, and how it was, it was magic. It was true magic that you couldn't ever explain, because it was just like, if you looked at our team, I mean, we were incredibly talented group. I was saying school effort, like we'd never been remotely in a position we were down 9-0 with 3 innings to go. So it was cool. It was beautiful. So
We had talked about parents too, and a few of the speakers today, parenting, parents. There was one boy on the team that would often fall back if he had 2 strikes on him, like he'd strike out. And he had 2 strikes on him. I'll never forget this. And the parents, you could see them collectively all go, oh, like their whole bodies just went like, oh, at one of these games. And I couldn't help myself. I like turned to them and I said, you can't do that. Because the kid had looked to me, right? And I'm like, you can't do that. Watch, just believe. And like he hits a triple. Like it was miraculous in the moment. But to watch parents like not believe in what's happening on the field, that's really huge. And there needs to be so much more coaching at that level for parents to support their kids in a judgment-free way. And I think it was Desmond Clark, our very first speaker today, talked about the fact that we have too much judgment. Like the judgment is killing things. And that's, I think, really important. And you yourself, you've coached hockey teams.
Yeah, and bringing pressure free for the coaches that are on here that maybe be coaching with other coaches that may not have maybe tools to manage their own stress. What I found in coaching, I was assistant coach for a U16 travel hockey team, and then an assistant for a high school varsity team, and it was two different goals, 2 different mindsets. So in the travel team, it was all about development. It didn't really matter. Yes, we would like to win games, so we were moving kids on to high school varsity or junior hockey, or getting them ready to take that next step before going on to play college, if that was what they desired. And then when you're in that position as a varsity head coach, that's hired by the school, is the expectation is to win, and that's all that matters. You have one indicator of success. And so yeah, what really changed the game, I was part of a first year varsity high school program, and it was so I mean, as a first year program, this was, all the odds, were against us. And I think what we were able to do as coaches is just get very aligned on what was realistically what we could do, as a program. And we ended up winning it was kind of crazy, winning the conference as a first year varsity program. And I think that's because us as coaches, we knew what we wanted, and we knew why each other were there, and what the expectations each of us had for each other and the team. I think it was just this pure alignment of goals and dreams and of ways to get there, where when you have 3 coaches and you're coaching 22 14 to 18 or 16, 18-year-olds who are going through, and I'll go to parenting real quick. And I remember, I'll never forget this as a wrap up here, is as a role as all of us as coaches, the first thing they tell you in USA Hockey now is that when you go in for the coaching certification, and the first thing they say is they bring up the divorce rate. And so they really basically emphasize that you may be the only male role model in these kids' lives. And sure enough, that was the case. I developed some really close relationships with some of the players in kind of the context of these, a lot of them were parents are going through divorce, and you would have never told, but I was like looked at as kind of like a big brother to them, being a 22-year-old coach of 16-year-olds. And so that's just something that yeah, we had to get very aligned as coaches on our mission, mission to whether it be development or winning. That's what we had to first emphasize. But then what's below that and what's at the core is that we had to develop a culture that every kid that walked through the door, they felt like they were wanted, they're included, and that we had to treat them in a way that wasn't equal but was fair. Because if you treat them all equal, then that doesn't make sense because every kid is unique. So when we got aligned with that, was like, okay, from the optic standpoint, sometimes with parents, they don't understand that. But as us as coaches, when we started treating kids that we saw as fair to them within whatever their situation was, from their talent level to their commitment to the team, their attitude when they came into the rink, yeah, we were able to just get early on from that team that buy-in from them that we were going to do great things. And that just comes down to somewhat being pressure free and being clear on the target. And so yeah, anything else you want me to touch on?
It's really, really great. It's I'm just grateful that you came, that you shared this. I mentioned earlier, I thought it was just incredible that you invested yourself in your mother's program. That's pretty incredible. It was a great year that we went through together with the people that were in that program. And yeah, it's just been really beautiful to see how this very simple concept I created has just transformed your life and your brother's lives and just taken everything to a whole new level. And like you said, I mean, you went to Hawaii. It just all my kids have been to Hawaii. I've not been to Hawaii. But it's just great how you live life, and the sleep you get and the way you are in the world, and the fact that you're such a connector too, Hugh. My children are all really good friends to their friends, and they connect strangers to each other. And connection is how we started this day with the speakers. Amazing connections with every single one of them. I had some sort of connection that we didn't even know about, and so we've been able to pull that full circle. And when I see what you do in that realm, and I had also mentioned that Ingalls Pictures, the first value of Ingalls Pictures, your company, is love and respect all people. And that is just so overarching to everything you do. So thanks so much for being on. It's been great.
Thank you, Mama.
And we're going to stop this recording and then we're going to pull out.